Hey everybody, Black Ninja 797 here. Welcome back to another video, guys. In today's video, I want to try something really fun here. This is going to be a new idea, and I want to see if this ends up sticking. So if you guys end up enjoying this, at the end, of course, I want you guys to drop a like, because this is a new series idea that I want to try. This is going to end up being reading gaming creepypastas. I love video games much as the next guy, but the one thing that's kind of funny about video games is that some things about video games are kind of hard to master, and in my humble opinion, that's horror. Because there is sure some horror games that are really, really good. Outlast, Amnesia, so many different ones that you can think of, right? But in my humble opinion, I'm very picky about when it comes to horror because I don't like just jump scares galore. And I feel like one of the best ways that you can convey horror is through reading, because many people don't read nowadays, and I always love a good scary story. So my idea is that I want to try something new where I go online and I read creepypastas for you guys. This is a brand new series that I would love to try because I love channels such as Mr. Nightmare, which has just got so many great, awesome, scary stories that you can just listen to online. You don't have to worry about watching anything. It's just mostly audio. It's kind of like an audiobook that way. And I want to try something that's very similar, so it's kind of inspired by Mr. Nightmare, who is one of my personal favorite YouTubers. Now, keep in mind, I just want to mention at the beginning here is that if any of these stories by any of the authors happen to be copyright or anything, I do apologize in advance to any of the authors. I don't want to plagiarize any of your content, so I am just going to just make this video and just play it by ear. If any authors do end up not liking the fact that I am reading your stories for the sake of this video, then please contact me in my social medias. They're always linked down below in the description. I'd be more than happy to work something out with you guys, like maybe privating the video or figuring out something else, because I wouldn't want you guys to feel like I'm plagiarizing you. But yeah, guys, for right now, I just want to be able to just sit back, relax, get cozy, and just read some good-ass scary stories. If you guys end up enjoying today's video, please drop a like, comment, and subscribe at the very end. But yeah, guys, let's read some video game creepypastas. This very first story is going to be called Don't Install the Hangman app by Ken Lewis, so shout out to you, Ken. I had just finished another level of my favorite game app when the usual ad popped up. I know that companies that design these games need to make money somehow, but the frequent ads get annoying really fast. The only good thing about most of them is how short they are. This one was different though. It convinced me to watch with a familiar opening tune. I recognized it the moment I heard those somber violins play. It was Chopin's Funeral March. Anyone who has ever watched a cartoon is sure to have heard that comparison before. It was frequently played whenever a character was about to meet his doom. As the music progressed, a brightly colored noose slowly descended, swaying back and forth until it reached the middle of the screen and then stopped. The title of the game started to come into focus, letter by letter, while random photos of people's faces appeared in the head centered in the loop of the rope. The headshots were all cropped neatly so the rope fit perfectly around their throats. Holy shit, I thought, as the last photo appeared, and the noose was the one I used for my Facebook profile, cropped just like the others. I know it wasn't a major stretch for a game to do something like that, I just wasn't expecting it. That upped the cool factor for me. By the time my picture was displayed, the title of the game had fully appeared and the music cut off. Hangman. It was declared in Old West-style font, each letter hanging from a rope. Kudos to the game's marketing department. The ad managed to pique my interest. Eager to learn more, I tapped the screen expecting to be redirected to the App Store where I could read an overview of the game, see some reviews, and maybe watch a video or two about the gameplay. I was surprised when I was redirected to the game's website instead. I don't think I've ever encountered a game that redirects me straight to a website. I figured there was some sort of contract that forced users to go to the provider's official app store. I wasn't going to let that deter me from playing though. Not if the game was as cool as I was hoping. The only information listed on the website was the following. You have been hired as the town's new hangman. Executions are scheduled every 3 days. In order to keep your job, you must execute the target within 72 hours. Do you have what it takes to man the gallows? The text was followed by several photos showing how you pick your targets and how to go about hanging them. From what I gathered, this was another one of those augmented reality games that used your phone's camera as the noose to hang your targets. When you first start the game, you select your target from a list called the Condemned. Once you have made your selection, the target's picture is shown on the bottom left of your screen. If you tap the picture, you are taken to a map that shows your current location along with the projected location of the target, which was supposed to be accurate about 1,000 feet. Once you have located your target in the real world, you are supposed to tap on the noose icon, which would open your phone's camera app with the mirror addition of there being a CGI noose hanging in the middle of the screen. You then hold your phone so the target's head appears in the middle of the noose for 3 seconds. If you succeed in doing that, the camera takes a picture and you will have successfully hung your target. After you have hung 3 targets, you would then be given the choice to be promoted to the next level or retiring. The listed levels were Hangman, Executioner, and Reaper. The game site also featured a leaderboard that had several gamer tags listed as a Hangman, but no one yet listed as a Executioner or a Reaper. I suspected that was because the game was recently realized and nobody had the time to advance yet. I love dark games, and this one sounded like a lot of fun. At least fun for someone with a twisted sense of humor like me. I quickly tapped the download button, excited to start playing. Normally I'd be telling all my friends about this game, but not this time. I wanted to get a head start and be the first person to make it to a Reaper on the leaderboard before anyone else. As I waited for the game to download, the typical user agreement popped up. It was a dozen pages of same legal nonsense presented with every game these days. Does anyone even read those? I had no intent of starting now. I quickly scrolled to the bottom of the text and clicked the agreed box, which closed the pop-up box and allowed the game to finish downloading. Moments later, I was prompted to enter my gamer tag. Before it would allow me to continue, I entered the tag I have used since the 6th grade, Namer Nels. Or as many of you have already guessed, Slender Man spelled backwards. What can I say? I went through a phase when I was younger. Like most of my friends at the time, I was obsessed with the character. I grew out of it, but the name stuck. Once the game accepted my tag, I was ready to play. The first thing that popped up was a group of photos of people with the title of The Condemned at the top of the screen. There were about a dozen photos shown and I needed to pick one of them to hang. As I was trying to decide, unavailable stamps appeared over one of the photos. I assumed that meant someone else had already chosen that person. Good to know I wouldn't be competing against other players to hang the same person. Since this was my initial attempt to play the game, I decided to pick the first name on the list. A person whose tag was listed as Negan8. How original. I thought, as you could have guessed, it looked like a total asshat right now with his bleach blonde crew cut and sports jersey he was wearing. I hated sports and had no idea what the jersey was from, and I didn't care to find out. The fact that he was wearing it was enough to tell me I didn't like him, but I sure was going to enjoy hanging him. I tapped Negan8's picture and confirmed him as my choice. Eager to get started, I tapped the picture again to determine his location. It looked like he was over in the shopping district near downtown. If I had to guess, I'd say he was probably at the mall hanging out with his buddies. They should be easy to find as they walk around like an army of clones who thought they owned the place. I looked at the time and it was almost 4 o'clock. If Negan8 was at the mall, I doubt he'd be leaving anytime soon. It was Friday and he was likely planning on hanging there all night. I wouldn't be able to get out of my apartment until after 5 and wouldn't be able to make it to the mall until around 6. That should have given me plenty of time to track down and hang him, assuming that he was still at the mall by the time I got there. I kept myself occupied by watching TV while I waited for my brother, who was also my roommate, to get home with the car. I frequently checked the Hangman app to make sure that Negan8 was where I expected him to be. As I suspected, his location didn't change by more than a few hundred feet, which he still put him within the radius of the mall. When I arrived, I parked as close to the food court doors as I could. That was where most people my age tend to hang out on Friday nights, and that was where I thought I had the best chance of finding Negan8. It was also the most central location to the various spots the app had placed him over the past 2 hours. The food court is designed in a sort of U shape, with the doors I entered being the bottom center and access to the rest of the mall being at the top. I walked around the food court twice without finding him and decided to sit down to see if his location had changed on the app. As far as I could tell, he would be somewhere within 1,000 feet of me if the app's margin for error was accurate. Since he wasn't in the food court, that meant he'd be in a store nearby. I got up and walked over to the store directory to try and determine which of the shops he would most likely be interested in. I had to admit, I liked the game so far. I was starting to feel like a detective trying to track down a criminal, and the chances were pretty high, in my opinion, that Negan 8 was probably a criminal of some sort. I assumed myself that by thinking I was doing the world a favor by hanging him and wondering if I could get bonus points for hanging his posse. I was able to narrow down my choices to 3 different shops. My number 1 choice was Champs, a store that sold sports clothing. I figured a guy like Negan 8 couldn't own enough sports jerseys and probably always on the lookout for more. My number 2 choice was Lids, a store that sold baseball caps. I never understood how a store like that could survive in a mall. Do you really sell that many caps, or are they just ridiculously expensive? Either way, I figured my target likely owned a few. My final choice was GameStop. I only added to the list since he was in the vicinity and everyone owns a PlayStation or an Xbox, he probably did too. I left the food court and headed towards Champs, intending to walk by and see if my target was inside. When I got there and noticed how big the store was, I decided to do a quick walkthrough instead, but he wasn't there. I headed to my next destination, Lids, but I could see he wasn't there either. The store was tiny and I could see the interior well before I got there. That just left GameStop. I stopped for a second and pulled my phone out to check the target's current location. According to the game, it hadn't changed. He was somewhere, I just had to find him. I continued on my way to the game store, which took me past the south entrance of the opposite side of the mall from the food court. Near the entrance is a large decorative fountain filled with coins. It was there that I heard a group of guys suddenly start laughing obnoxiously. Naturally, I turned to see what was so funny, and I was surprised to see my target sitting on the edge of the fountain, his 3 cronies standing in front of him, laughing. I changed course and started walking around the opposite side of the fountain, trying to find a good vantage point for my phone's camera. I hated the mall and wanted to hang Negan 8 and get out of there as soon as possible. Crowds were my thing, and the mall quickly filling up with shoppers. "Shut up," I heard Negan 8 say to the trio standing before him. "You'd suck as a detective," Beanpole taunted. "You're like an Inspector Gadget. Let's get out of here," Pimpleface whined. "Your time ran out hours ago. Why are you still looking for her?" "It's because he hasn't got the hots for her," Chubby answered. "He's like those nerdy girls." All 3 of them started to laugh again. Negan 8 just sat there glaring at them. Interesting, I thought to myself. It seems Negan 8 may be playing Hangman as well and failed to hang his first target. I wonder if that was why he was listed on the other choices under the condemned when I was picking a target. If that was the case, it wasn't going to happen to me. I walked around the fountain until I came to a bench and gave me a decent vantage point to sit and aim my camera at Negan 8 without being too obvious. I wasn't able to hear the rest of their conversation from where I was sitting, but from the looks on their faces, it was obviously his friends and were still giving him a hard time. I opened the game and tapped on the noose icon, which opened my camera app. I held my phone like I was reading a text while trying to angle at Negan 8's head in the middle of the noose. Once I had him lined up, a countdown started. The number 3 appeared at the bottom of the screen. As the number 3 was replaced by the number 2, Negan 8's hands flew up to his neck, grasping at something. I looked over at him and then back at my phone. His hands were perfectly lined up with the game's generated noose on my screen. It was as if he could feel it and was trying to remove it from his neck. Beanpole, Chubby, and Pimpleface started to panic after they realized their friend's distress wasn't an act. Negan 8 stood up as the counter changed from 2 to 1, his face turning blue. Without realizing it, I had also stood up, which kept his head locked into his phone's noose. Negan 8 stood up as the counter changed from 2 to 1, his face turning blue. Without realizing, I had also stood up, which kept his head locked in my phone's noose. I froze. I didn't know what to do. I watched in horror as the counter changed from 1 to 0, and Negan 8 fell backwards into the fountain. His friends just stood there and stared at the nearby shoppers rushed to the fallen kid's aid. That broke me out of my paralysis. I quickly turned and walked out the south entrance and around the outside of the mall until I reached my car. I didn't look at my phone until I was sitting in my car. When I did, what I saw made me sick to my stomach. There was a CGI cutout screen of an executioner hanging a man over and over with the words, "Congrats, you did it." Underneath was, "Click here to choose your next target." The worst part was that the picture my phone had taken of Negan 8 as he died was superimposed over the hanging man's head. I drove around town aimlessly for the next few hours, trying to make sense of what had happened, trying to find some way to accept it and move on, but I couldn't find the silver lining. When I finally returned home, I walked through my door to find my brother sitting on the couch playing Xbox. "Where the hell did you go?" he asked, without pulling his eyes away from the militarily violent explosions on TV. "I thought you were just going to the mall." Out was all I offered as an exclamation, and I headed in my room. "Hey," he called out. "I was meaning to ask you, have you heard of this new app called Hangman?" "Why?" I stopped and turned around towards him. I downloaded it a few days ago and tried it out. Running around trying to take a picture of "someone is stupid." I was just going to tell you not to bother with it. Once I had locked myself in my bedroom, I opened the Hangman app and tapped the Choose Your Next Target button. I wasn't surprised by what I saw. There was only one person listed on the condemned page, MJR Grief. I always hated that gamer tag. My brother thought it was clever because our last name was Grief, and he liked being a pain in the ass when he played games. Thus, Grief/Grief play on words. I guess I should have read the user agreement before I started playing. Okay, now that was a really good story. That was really, really well done. The good news is about that story too is it was just dark enough that it was a really interesting story, but not too dark that I feel like YouTube's gonna flag me. So that was a really, really nice story. So Ken Lewis, that was fantastic, man. Nice job. Alright, so this story is called Why I Will Never Play Another Mario Game. I am writing this post in hopes that someone can tell me they have experienced something similar. I don't know why I care about that. No matter what anyone says, the situation will be the same, and I will still think that I am losing my shit. Anyways, I hope that everyone will take what I am saying seriously. I know how it sounds. If I were reading this on some random thread on Reddit, I would be skeptical as well. But take everything I say seriously, for everything I'm about to say is 100% true. I go to college at the University of Maine. I am currently going to grad school here, trying to get my PhD in surface sciences. I am very passionate about science and mainly computers. My first computer was an IBM, an old thing that was revolutionary for the time that left my 11-year-old mind amazed in 1995. I was really into playing Doom and Wolfenstein 3D when I got home from school. My mom and dad never really got mad at me because they were always at work, so no one really told me to stop playing those violent games. My love for those games continued through the 90s, but really peaked at the beginning of 1996. I was a typical 90s kid, obsessed with Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, fanny packs, mullets, classic horror movies, and even for a stint of time, I had a Tamagotchi. With the coming of school in the fall of 96 came the sadness of not being able to play video games every day as I did in the summer. However, school did bring joy of friends. At lunch, sometimes in class, we would talk about games and new releases that would be coming out soon. Back then, we didn't have websites dedicated to video game news. Instead, my friends group relied on Jeff, one of the more wealthy kids in our friend group that was subscribed to a video game magazine company that sent out issues once a month. On the last day of August, Jeff brought the latest issue to school. All of us crowded around the lunch table to catch a glimpse at the new system and what was coming out next month. The Nintendo 64. We were all begging our parents that night to help us with money to get the system. The N64 was an amazing system as it had 4 megabytes of RAM and could handle 3D graphics like none other before. I had saved a little money from mowing lawns in the summer, but it was not quite enough to buy the console coming September 29th of that year. I was disappointed and cried to my parents to help me out just this once, to buy this great piece of technology, but my family was struggling at the time, and me being the understanding and caring child just piped down. A couple of hard months passed, and with them came many complaints jeering from my friend group because I still had not received the console. It had been a difficult time for me. My parents were fighting and I just wanted to escape. I would have given anything for that damn console. I hated going to school and hearing about all my friends to show off their high scores on the newest games and hearing about them finding secret glitches and the newest installation of our favorite games. Months after the initial release in September, November rolled around. Not exactly my favorite time of year. I don't like the transition from pretty orange, yellow fall leaves on the roads covered by slick ice, disgusting dark, large pieces of snow, and parking lots with dirt in them. However, there was one thing worth my time during the dreaded month: my birthday. 12 years old. Birthdays never really made much sense to me. It was just a celebration of the day that someone was born that was based on a man-made unit of time that elongated into years. I hadn't really been looking forward to my birthday because I knew it wasn't going to be bringing around much. As I said before, my parents had been fighting and I really didn't expect to get anything from either of them because they were so busy with work and putting up with each other. That is why I was very, very excited to learn that the 19th of the month in 1996, I was getting $250 for my birthday. I came home that night after school to find a letter from my mom, who had always been the more caring of the two. Hi honey, I hope you enjoyed your birthday today. The big 1-2, congrats. Anyway, your father and I, you know, have been having disagreements lately. Anywho, your father and I have been having disagreements lately. We were alerted today that there is a program for couples that have been having similar disagreements. We both agreed that we should look into this, and we both fell in love with the idea. Isn't that great, baby? Anywho, the only problem is that we were made aware of this on little short notice. So we had to drive south today so we could make it there by tomorrow. Wednesday, the program is going to last a week. I know that you were understanding and a kind little boy, so I thought it would be okay to leave you alone until next Tuesday. That would give you the rest of the week and the weekend to yourself. To make up for this, me and your father decided to give you a little spending money so you can get yourself whatever little toy you want. We do have food in the pantry, but I do want some of that money to go towards food for yourself. Enjoy your weekend and see you on Tuesday. I didn't know whether to be excited about the freedom or disappointed that my parents leaving me on my 12th birthday. Either way, I had more than $200 to spend on whatever I wanted. To my puny 12-year-old brain, this was like a godlike amount of money. I knew exactly what I was going towards right away. I'm sure by now you can assume exactly what I wanted. I took that money out of the envelope, threw on my windbreaker and my old Pro Wings, and hopped on my old red bike named Silver. I started to head east past my dad's pharmacy, past the school, and past Jeff's house. I didn't really look over towards his house. He hadn't been in school that week. I skidded to stop in front of the Finger Gym, our local game store. I parked my bike right next to the big window in front of the store and started to waltz in. I really liked the store. It felt good going in, knowing that I would finally be able to accurately get something instead of just glancing around while my friends debated on what new game they should get or what Magic the Gathering card they should sell. I did a quick look around the store, eyeing the older NES and Super NES, making my way towards my prize jewel, the N64. I finally put my hands on the box I had been waiting to touch for a quarter of a year. I held it up in the light so I could read the line under, the Fun Machine. Damn straight it is. I ran my fingers over the smooth cardboard cover as I started to walk toward the counter. The kid working at the counter laid down his cigarette in the ashtray that was next to the Rubik's Cube. Now I think about it, it probably wasn't a cigarette. I just assumed it because I was still a small middle schooler that had a lots to learn. When I got to the counter, he asked, "Is that all?" Crap, I had forgotten to get a game. I responded with a quick no and started to look behind him at the selection of games. Most of the ones in the back were meant for the Super NES. Makes sense. The N64 is very popular in America, so of course all of its games would be sold out. I spoke after glancing around a little bit, desperately trying to find a game. "Do you have any N64 games in the back?" The boy took another drag and blew the smoke in my face. "I don't know." "Well, you could go in the back and check for me, please." "Jesus, kid, fine." He got off his stool and started toward the back. He pushed a curtain out of the way and started to search. I looked around the store with a plentiful of gaming posters and walls lined with board games and models of popular TV show action heroes. The boy returned after less than a minute with a cartridge in his hand. We only have one left, it looks like. He started to hand it over, but then pulled it back towards him. Ah, wait a second. What do we have here? He turned the cartridge over to reveal its face, only to be covered by a sticky note with the words, "Do not, under any circumstances, sell." Now you see here, kid, I have never been much of a rule follower, but this thing is buried under some shit in the back, and I don't think anyone will be missing this anytime soon. So he gave a wide grin to reveal, with his crooked teeth, layered with the yellow grim, "I am willing to strike a deal with you. I will sell you this game for a couple extra bucks. My boss probably didn't want to sell it because it must be a limited edition or something. So I will get you this game, just don't tell nobody, alright, kid?" Of course my eager little mind didn't care about what was right and wrong at the moment. There was an N64 in front of my face, for God's sakes, with even the possible limited edition game. So of course I took the grimy kid up on his deal, even though I knew he was going to the pockets for those extra bucks. I waltzed out of the store the same way I came in, excited what was about to come about. But only this time I was carrying an N64 and a game inside of $250. I put the plastic bag into the wire basket that was in the front of my bike. I don't know if I raced home faster then or when I did to the store initially. The ride home took about 5 minutes. I just let my bike drop to the ground after I came to a hard stop in front of my garage. I pounced up the concrete steps leading to my house. I swung open the door and started to my room. All night I knew I had a lot of homework, and me being the responsible boy, I didn't start playing right away, but didn't stop me from eyeing over at the box and opening it to save the beautiful system from its cardboard prison. I ran my fingers over the wondrously smooth black console like it was the skin of a newborn baby. I carefully set the console on my dresser and plugged it into my box TV. I led the wire from the infamous M-shaped controller to the port in the front of it. I was smiling through all this, but I stopped suddenly when I realized I forgot something. I didn't even know what game I had bought. I quickly but carefully set the controller down on my bed and then removed the cartridge from the bag. I ripped off the sticky note to reveal the true face of the game. In multicolor letters read the words Super Mario 64. I felt like I had won the lottery. It didn't look any different from my friend's cartridges. So I was a little upset that it wasn't exactly special edition, but nonetheless I was still pumped. I finally got what I had been waiting so long for. I could not wait for the weekend. Could it come any sooner? The next day, in the typical middle school boy fashion, I showed off my new game to my friends and rubbed it in their faces of the others who were not fortunate enough to have the system or the game. I was on top of the world for it that day. Just because of the stupid video game, my friends were happy for me, of course, and then we talked about the game and how long it took to beat. I didn't want to start to play my own copy yet because it acted as an incentive to me to get through the week. But boy, coming home and seeing it sitting on my dresser and glaring at it in the wee hours of the night was mighty tempting. But nonetheless, I persisted and I made it through the whole week. That Friday, the 22nd of November, I raced home after school and I finally played my new game all night. I dropped my bike off in front of my house and opened the door and closed it and locked it and threw off my jacket and hat and finally made my way to my sanctuary. I turned on the TV and slipped the gray cartridge into the slot at the top of the machine. Damn, what a feeling. I turned on the system and saw the N64 3D logo arise from the ripple of some liquid and starts to turn, with a little 3D Mario running around it. The game started and I finally started to play. I was already familiar with the castle at the start, so I thought I knew what was waiting for me. I made a new save and started the game, and the camera started to move toward Princess Peach's face. But something was already off. I thought I maybe had just bought a knockoff or fake game. Maybe that's why it wasn't meant to be sold. At the beginning, there was supposed to be a letter from Princess Peach that read, "Dear Mario, please come to the castle. I baked a cake for you. Yours truly, Princess Toadstool," with the signature of Peach. But what appeared to me that Friday next to Peach's face was a letter that read, "Dear player, you don't know what you're getting into. Turn off your system now and get help. Yours truly, the previous owner. Okay, that was odd. How had the previous person changed the text in the game? Either way, at the time I was too excited to play the game. That was the mysterious text outline didn't faze me at all. I just kept going and ran up to the castle, walked in, and jumped for the first portrait. I watched Mario fall from the sky and landed perfectly on the ground. Toad was waiting there for me to relay information about the next level. His speech said, "You will die if you continue. Turn off the game or I will kill you." Creepy as hell, but I just thought that some hacker had the game before me and just changed the text because they want to scare a kid who had it next. I just kept pressing the main menu button until the text disappeared, and I was reassured when I found that the gameplay had been the same as all my other friends. I jumped around the level and evaded the mushroom enemies, the same as I had done before. I made my way around the level collecting spinning red coins and hopping off of trees. I shot myself out of a cannon and flew to the top of the mountain to fight the final boss of the level. After that, I wrapped back to the starting area of the castle. I made my way through the next levels, the water levels, the levels on the mountain, the snow. I kept going until I collected 18 stars. I knew where to go for my first fight with Bowser. I took Mario to the correct hallway, and of course I wasn't surprised when Mario dropped through the floor because I had seen it done thousands of times before. He had landed on a rock and the text bubble appeared. "Welcome to hell." Huh? That was something new. Must have been something from the hacker had put into the game to scare me again. I jumped around the level and evaded the flames until I reached the end of the first encounter with Mario's infamous enemy. But when Bowser turned around, something else was different. The large turtle dragon hybrid had eyes that looked like black holes. The entirety of them were black, not a single pixel of white being shown. But I had just pressed off again and continued. I beat the boss easily and was warped back to the castle. But in the corner of the screen, right before the scene transitioned to the castle intro, I saw Bowser get up and he moved away towards the edge of the map and shapeshifted into a tall black humanoid figure. The only thing that the new entity had that resembled the original Bowser were the long pointed teeth protruding from its mouth. I was very freaked out at this point and I was reluctant to get out of the map. At first I had thought the game had glitched, but for some reason I was in the part of the castle I shouldn't have been in until later in the game. Looking up for as far as Mario could see was the endless hallways. Now I am sure some of you know what I'm referring to. You couldn't even access the area without having the right number of stars. Also, those who would have played the game know that when you start to walk up the stairs, it seems like they go on forever unless you know the backwards jump glitch or had the right number of stars, of course. Excited at this point, I had forgotten all about the strangeness of the game for a brief few moments. I had made it this far in one day. I would have shown my friends so they would know I was good and how dedicated I am to this game. The only thing that could make the situation better is if I could actually make it to the top of the staircase. I placed Mario's little feet on the first step and started to ascend. After a minute of still climbing the stairs, I was about to get ready to give up. But then I remembered something. There should be a picture of Bowser on the side of the walls leading to the top, but I haven't seen anything. Immediately after I had a thought, I saw the edge of the frame. I jumped up the steps to get there quicker and landed in front of the picture. To my horror, I saw a very familiar image. Sitting on the rock was 6-year-old me with my old dog that had died, Lassie. I was very shaken up by this. All my other excuses for the strange events held no weight now. This just couldn't be explained away. Of course, my curiosity told me to continue. I started ascending again, only to find more familiar pictures. I had walked past a plethora of photos, all of which were me and my family. Not only were their photos themselves familiar, but the order in which they were hanging similar to the ones leading to the staircase on the second level. Remember, this was early Saturday morning around 2 or 3 a.m. My parents weren't supposed to be home yet, but I swear I heard something on the steps outside my door. This couldn't be possible. I turned around to look, but was only greeted by the darkness outside my room. I looked back towards the screen to continue to play the game. I started to slowly creep back up the stairs, and while I did that, I heard more noises outside the room. Now I was scared shitless. I dropped the controller and bolted to the door. I grabbed the handle and swung it shut. causing the frame of most of my room to vibrate. I fumbled in the dark with the lock until I heard it click. I pressed my back against the door until I let out a deep breath. Mario was still there waiting for me. Went back to the game hoping that it was just restlessness getting to my mind. I was just wanting to keep playing my game. I just wanted my game in my childhood to be normal like everyone else's. I turned Mario around and started to creep down the stairs of the game. Luckily, I didn't hear anything on the stairs again. I continued down the stairs listening to the stairs moan in the game, but not outside my bedroom, thank God. I was wiping the sleep away from my eyes, and I put my controller down for a second or two. I removed my hands and stretched it out a bit, letting out a long yawn. I opened my eyes to be greeted with Mario staring back at me, but only now with his eyes as black as Bowser's were. I couldn't take it anymore. I brought the stick of the joypad down so that Mario could get away from the damn staircase. He started walking slower than before, with his eyes still dark as night, staring at me. He gradually started to slow down, and I began mashing buttons trying to get Mario to move just one more inch, but he just stood there. Finally, the character brought up an index finger on his hand and shook it, back and forth along with his hand. He then brought the corners of his mouth back towards his ears in a grotesque smile. He opened his mouth to reveal the teeth that resembled Bowser's. I was beyond trying to convince myself that this wasn't real at this point. Mario turned around and started sprinting up the steps. Along with those steps in-game, I heard a pounding sound outside my room again. I jumped up and went to my bedside. Whatever was outside my room had finally reached the top of the steps and stopped. I stood in awe for a few seconds, trying to think of what to do. I started to bang on my door, shaking the frame and sent splinters on the side. I crouched and crawled under my bed. I looked up and watched the door was shaking. Whatever was out there kept pounding on the door and the wall. After about 5 seconds, it stopped. I removed my hands from the front of my face to see what was going on. I looked left and right and saw nothing. I let out a relieved breath, and I crawled out a bit more to peek around the corner. I looked at my TV screen to see Mario looking in the opposite direction of the game, standing still in front of the final door. Mario put his hand on the door, and at the same time I heard my door creak a little bit. I was so glad I had locked it. Mario removed his hand and turned to his left to look at one final portrait. This one I was not familiar with. I had not seen this in-game nor in real life. It was a picture of a television set. Mario put his hand on the portrait and it began to ripple like the other portraits previously, going into a new level. When he touched it, my TV began to crinkle with static. I could barely make out Mario through the white noise as it removed his hand. Everything went back to normal. He took a final look to his left, started to stare into my soul, and opened his mouth for another one of those smiles. He shoved himself into the portrait. My TV emitted the loudest static noise I had ever heard. It then began to ripple and shake. The screen shattered and sparks flew out of the back of the set. I didn't have time to see what was crawling out of its remains. I rolled out from under my bed and started towards the window. I ducked down and hit my shoulder against the window and glass shattered, and I flung my body out of my room as the set continued to spark and set my drapes ablaze. It hit my roof and tumbled down. I hit my roof and tumbled down. The last thing I thought about before rolling off and smashing my head against a concrete sidewalk was the snow. It was the first snowfall of the winter. I had missed watching it because I was too distracted by the game. I woke up that Wednesday in the hospital and saw my parents and a nurse next to me. The house had caught on fire for some unknown reason and was done for. We would be living in a hotel for the next few weeks until we found a place to rent. I had a nice long break. I didn't have to go to school for a while because of Thanksgiving break and because of my nasty head injury I had. I did, of course, have to return to my education hell for about 3 weeks later, right before Christmas break, which I had been looking forward to as well. I returned and continued throughout my classes with little to no struggle. Teachers were going easy on me. Who would give a kid whose house burnt down, sustained a head injury, and those parents that were going through a divorce stressful hours of homework? Returning to school did bring the joy of my friends' company, however. My friends jumped me with a ton of questions about my house. I remember nothing. I got questions about the game after that. Of course, too, I didn't tell them exactly what happened because I knew they wouldn't believe me. I just gave them a short, quick answer so they would stop pestering me. Then they brought up Jeff. He had been playing the game down in his basement while his parents were away during the week. Now, I don't know if it's true, but the gang told me that Jeff's parents had returned home to Jeff under the steps leading to the basement, hanging by a cord from his N64 controller. They told me that the police told his folks it wasn't suicide due to head wounds and gouged out eyes, but it hadn't been ruled out as murder either because there was no signs of a struggle. Jeff's dad, they told me, had sold the N64 and a copy of Mario 64 to the Finger Gym to get the reminder out of the house. Wow. Wow, that is a good-ass story. That is extremely good. These stories are actually really, really well done. This is like Mr. Nightmare level quality, and the thing is, they're a lot longer. They can be anywhere from about like 20 to 40 minutes. These are very, very well done. Nice job to the author. Oh, here he is, actually, right here. It says credits. Okay, here's our author right here, actually. It's Insomniac. Yo, shout out to you, Insomniac. That was a really, really good story. Alrighty, guys, so that is going to be it here for today's video, and this is going to be hopefully the first of many video game creepypastas. Let me know if you guys want to see more of these in the future. I'd be more than happy to do them, and if you enjoyed, please drop a like, comment, and subscribe, and all that beautiful stuff. These stories were extremely well done. See, the cool news is, too, is that, like, they start off kind of slow, and then they really, really get into it at the very, very end. Like, it goes from, like, very, innocent to suspicious to eerie to in danger to shit's hitting the fan to I'm gonna fucking die to then a really, really interesting result at the end. It's just so cool. Like, who would have thought that this would be something that would happen for a really, really cool story? That was awesome, man. Alrighty, guys, but that is once again going to be it for today's video. Just one last time, if you enjoyed, please drop a like, comment, and subscribe. If you guys want to financially support the channel, I definitely appreciate if you guys can check out my Patreon. As always, linked down below in the YouTube video descriptions. And if you guys also want to use supporter creator code BlackNinja797 in all caps in the Fortnite Epic Games item shops, that would also be very much appreciated too, because this video is sponsored by Epic Games. But yeah, guys, I hope you end up enjoying another YouTube video for the most unique YouTuber you guys are ever going to see. Thank you for watching, guys. Peace out. Sleep well.